Okay. Ugh. I had some questions I wanted answered. All right. I was watching who is it? Um Veritas. There was a video about a paradox that I thought was pretty interesting. Wonder what by definition what is paradox? Seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that when investigated or explained may prove to be well founded or true. Okay. I feel like there's an idea in the military that the side with the better technology like wins. And I don't know if that's true. Like a tank is pretty technologically advanced in the sense of like you have like folded armor and like different layers. I mean, the technology that just goes into developing armor for a tank is pretty complicated. And you could also say the technology to defeat that said armor is less complicated. So like you have like um layers of armor. It's not just pure steel for the most part. Maybe like older armor, sure, but like for the most part, modern day armor, like you have, I think it's called laminate. Whereas like you might have like steel or some high carbon iron, and then there's like a gap, and then there's another thing. Could be like ceramic or something like that, and then might be more steel, and then another gap, and it's all laminated. And again, this has to be molded. Like if we looked at like a T-72, really, like it's not like these are just perfect square boxes. These are pretty like geometrically not simple. They're complex. How big is this? This is a pretty good. It's a model, but where is the open image and new? There it is. Okay, I haven't used Google. Like, like this, even the turret. It's not just square panels that are welded together and whatnot. Like these are formed and molded however they do it. I don't know the whole process of like making this turret. Um, some of this is a little bit square and stuff. You know, just like circles are kind of easy. You could make that, but like once you start like turning metal, It's like this isn't rolled. Again, I don't know the process to make a tank, but it's complex. It's not like someone in their backyard can just make a piece of armor that can withstand RPGs and other things like that. So this is pretty complex. And then like you look at like a shaped charge, and there is complexity in the sense of like the chemistry, like what is this explosive, but like making this, this might be a better one. Yeah, so like, dude, these are all bad. Hold on. Like these are complex. Well, no, they're not super complex geometries. Like this is a cylinder. So you can make this, it's like a pipe, I'm sure there's a lot of science that goes into like what material works best and trial and error. But once you kind of figure out what works to make the cylinder that holds all this, pretty simple. The explosives that surround this, that's chemistry. Chemistry is complex. And then this is just copper. I mean, there's different they've done experiments with different materials besides just copper, but like for the most part, like here's your elemental table up here for different chemical compositions of the copper alloy. But like once you figure this out, these can be produced pretty quickly. And I would say jets are a little bit more complicated than EFPs. So here's like fragment, EFP, and then this is a jet. Again, the geometry and everything, the research into this is complex, but once the research is done, like manufacturing this, pretty simple. So like defeating something as complex as a tank, it almost seems like simpler design, simpler ideas defeat complex designs, which is counterintuitive to the idea of like, well, the more advanced, F-22s, F-35s, like these things are super advanced, tons of components. Like what defeats them or what could potentially defeat them are very simple things. I don't know. It just seems paradoxical in the sense of like, okay, how do you protect your tank from, explosive, a shaped charge like this? And it's like, okay, well, you could, I don't know, like make more advanced armors. There's like things like the trophy system, tank trophy system, which is again very complex, but like the idea is like you have radars, like something that shoots out pretty much like buckshot at an incoming missile, and then like pre-detonates it. So you're like beating an ordnance with just more technology. You're like stacking technology, right? You already have the advancement of the tank, the armor, everything that goes into making a tank. I mean, which is very complex. And then on top of that, we're going to add more advancements of technology to defeat somewhat simple ideas to defeat this. And then now we have turtle Ukraine war. Now to defeat, again, like this is all, oops, not that one. This is all, these are complex in the sense, you almost have to put things out of spectrum, but to like make a shaped charge, once the secret sauce is kind of figured out, like the complexity, I feel like diminishes. Like the complexity of figuring out how to like make chemicals that explode and getting the right heat temperatures and geometric design of your penetrator and everything like that. Like once that's done, like the manufacturing for this is pretty easy. And then it's like, okay, well, how do we defeat this? And it's like, well, we go higher in technology or we can go lower in technology. And I would say like this is a lower in tech. I mean, we're using chains and just straight steel, just welded steel. But like, why does this work so well? Why does the welded steel out here protect this highly advanced like laminate armor underneath it from jets? And it's I know it's standoff distance in the sense of like when an RPG where is it? Like when your RPG like it's flying, here's where your armor is. Like actually we'll just copy image. Rotate 90 degrees. Okay, so you have like your RPG, and then you have like your laminate armor, which is pretty complex. When this RPG eventually hits this laminate armor, this explosive charge goes, it inverts this copper cone and then shoots the copper cone into the armor. So you could like you can imagine I think this top one is a jet. So you like pretty much are forming this inverts, turns into this, and then you penetrate your armor. And it's like, okay, how do you defeat this? Well, what you want is for this RPG to detonate further away from your armor, because if your armor is out here and then the RPG detonates, your copper jet is somewhere over here, and by the time it hits the armor, it changes its composition in a lot of ways, and then it just doesn't do as much. So it's about increasing the standoff. And now you've pretty much, by increasing the standoff with like another layer of armor out here, you're pretty much causing this to like disintegrate when it impacts this first layer. And then by the time it gets to your actual armor, it's pretty much done. It's no longer useful for what it was intended for. And just do that. So like this like heat jet isn't necessarily new, but it's more advanced than I would say an EFP, which is oh my god. I have too many different browsers up right now. Screw you, Google right now. This EFP is just a simpler design. Like you don't need to go as convex. I mean, the explosives are still chemical, but like you're turning a slab of metal into a bullet, pretty much, instead of a jet. And again, like to form a jet, to get it super hot and pointed, to get into armor takes a lot more effort, I think, than just kind of making a big metal bullet. Now there is one thing. I mean, the jet definitely penetrates more. Like right here, you have uh like pictures. The one on the left, you can kind of see some of this might be laminated. This might be. I don't think this is just solid pure steel. But anyway, your jet has 51.1 millimeters, and then your EFP is 41 point. So I can see why jets are preferred before, but once you have better, like more standoff, this jet is actually going to underperform your EFP. So there's like this paradox in war that is like you defeat higher technology by regressing in technology. And I was wondering if there's like, this is already talked about in more simpler terms, and I believe it has. I have to refine my thing. I forget which one I was on. You're thinking of well-known phenomenon in military, but it's usually called regression. Is a recognized strategic concept. Weaker or less technologically advanced side can gain an advantage by using simpler, cheaper. So let's see what there is. It refers to the counterintuitive phenomenon where military, economically, or technology superior nations or energies lose conflicts against weaker, less stronger powers, often focus on physical destruction. The study examines the paradox of asymmetric warfare, where weaker militaries achieve victory against superior adversaries. The research seeks to understand the mechanism that enable the weaker side to prevail in conflict. The study will take a mixed method approach using pivotal studies as the background. This document is not available here. That's pretty sick. Military strategic culture and the paradox of asymmetric conflict. So pretty much what we're doing is the study examines and compares the performance of Soviet military in Afghanistan, the Russian military in Chechnya. It aims to discern continuity or change in methods and doctrines because Russian military culture purposes for big war paradigm that have been embedded over time. Moreover, this work dude, my reading and writing comprehension means assume, suggest. Okay. This work suggests that continuity rather than change was much more probable, even though Russia's great power positions had to diminish and blah, blah, blah. However, continuity manifests in the continued embrace of conventional and predictability symmetric approach was more probable since the culture change usually requires up to 10 years. Why? Dude, stop. Several paradoxes also in here. In asymmetrical conflict, these are also very much related to the cultural baggage that accompanies great power status. The fact the Russian military failures in both wars are attributed to the paradox of asymmetrical conflict. These paradoxes come into play whenever a great power faces a pre-industrial and semi-feudal enemy who is dude, what? Come on, dude. Who is intrinsically compelled to mitigate the great power's numerous advantages with cunning and asymmetry. I wonder what they like, just by definition wise. What do we lack of equality or equivalent between parts or aspects of things lack symmetry. In other words, great powers often do poorly in small wars simply because they are great powers that must embrace a big war paradigm by necessity. This study identifies and explains 6 paradoxes of asymmetrical conflict. This also, okay, this is what I was looking for, is like paradoxes, in the sense of like paradoxes are interesting in the sense of like they're just so unintuitive. Like you think things would work one way and then they don't, and you're like, well, what the fuck? And it's like, well, that's just how it goes. Another reason I kind of am bringing this up, I mean, paradoxes are interesting. Military is interesting. You put them together, you have something I think very interesting. And then on top of that, you can kind of like potentially guess what's going to happen next. Like the one I used, I already like kind of hit some AI with this, and it was very interesting in like the global war on terror, where it was like IED started with like cell phone signals or radio. So like you would hook up a receiver to an explosive, and then you would have a transmitter send something to the receiver, thus starting the explosive. And then like our military was like, well, okay, this sucks. How do we counter this? It's like, well, we can shut down all signals in the area with something called the Duke. U.S. military Duke system anti-signal device. Yeah, this thing, dude. This thing was very interesting in the sense of dude, what is my volume at? So this thing on the back right here is what the Duke was, and it literally just overwhelmed signals in the area. So it's like, okay, like you can try to set off your IED with a cell phone or whatever, but the Duke is gonna like jam everything in the area, and then your cell phone signal is not gonna go through.
Come on, let's go. Move it.
I don't remember our Duke. This might be a newer Duke where it told you. Like, imagine like this might work in Afghanistan where there's not a lot of cell phones, but at least in Iraq, especially Baghdad, I mean, everyone's on their cell phone. So like this thing, like it's just gonna tell you that a shit ton of people, like 100,000 people, are using their phones around you. Which isn't very useful. In the sense of it detecting an actual attack. Like, how do you differentiate someone making a legitimate phone call from someone trying to make a phone call that is uh, with the purpose of causing harm? I don't think there's a way to do it. But this was like the counter to these types of weapons. Then the enemy was like, okay, that's not going to work. Like, let's do like garage or infrared sensor IDs, like IR sensor IED. I wonder if there's anything. So passive infrared sensor or PIR motion sensors are used within improvised explosive devices, IEDs, as a switch to function the main charge when a person or vehicle is detected by the PIR. I mean, these are like on the same thing for your garage doors. It's what tells your garage door to stop closing. Like, it's the same thing. I mean, this is literally a very common setup. So you would set something up like this. You know, this would be on one side of the road, this would be on the other side of the road, attached to an explosive. And then when something passes this beam, it pretty much sets off the explosive. So it's like, okay, like what are we gonna do next? It's like, well, we can do military rhino mount. Military. What were these called? Let's see here. You think of a Rhino passive infrared defeat system. Usually, these are. Like, I literally just Googled this and it just. Really? So this is what was put on the front of Humvees. To pretty much pre-detonate that garage door sensor. So it's like the same thing as your garage door sensor, just instead of the front of your vehicle passing that beam, this would pass the beam, thus pre-detonating the explosive pretty much. I mean, it's better. I mean, it'll still rock your shit if you're, depending on the size of the explosive, um, and other aspects. But that was the idea. That was how you would defeat. So again, you have like this kind of like a game meta where it's like the meta is cell phones. Okay, we defeat the cell phones. The next meta is passive IR. Okay, now we can beat passive IR. The next thing is the what's it called? Oh, what was it called? When ADs used thermal sensors to detect engines to cause I mean, this is passive. PIR. I mean, is that what this is? I mean, I guess they kind of fall in the same way. So the largest amount of energy comes from warmest objects. So this is PR motion detects do not emit any energy. The motion is a range of field of view, hence the term passive and not active. PIR detectors monitor infrared energy produced by passing objects. So I'm guessing PIR motion, passive infrared motion detectors do not emit any energy. The motion, they monitor the level of within its, hence the term passive and not active. So I don't know how to differentiate these. Boom mount, heat emitting decoy attached to the front of the helmet. VM wrap. Passive. What is it called when this? How is PIR? Or how's this passive infrared? It's different from the two systems look similar from the outside, but under the hood, they're completely different technologies built in different physics. Passive versus garage door systems detect, interrupt, lazy infrared. Okay, so these are passive sensors. These would be active sensors. Gotcha. So the Rhino mount first came out because of active sensors, which is your garage door openers. And then these passive sensors started to sense heat, and we're like, defeating this. And instead, we're sensing the engine block, which told the explosive when to detonate. And then it was like, okay, we'll put some coils. You can kind of see some of the wires in this. Of course, you can't zoom in on this picture. Like, you can see some of the wires. There was a heating element inside of here that would detonate the passive infrared sensors. So, okay. After that, you had pressure plates. So, you might have something like this under the road where there's even a more simple one, super simple. Like you have two sticks with a, here are examples of like pressure plates. Again, super simple. You're just pretty much you're completing a circuit in this way. Since these are made out of wood, defeats your mine detectors. So like, how did these get defeated? Okay, so then again, we went up in technology a little bit, and then you had mine rollers. So then you had something that had to apply pressure in front of the vehicle, and that would cause the pressure plate to go and again save your life. Then they were like, okay, how do you defeat that? And it was like, well, instead of continuously going up in technology with sensors, passive active IR, different types of pressure plates and these circuits, why not just do command wire? Once you went into command wire, there was nothing anyone could do. You can't block that with a Duke. You can't block that by tricking the command wire or anything like that. You had to pretty much drive really slow. I mean, that was how we did it. Was you just drive real fucking slow, and then you just look with your eyes and see if you see anything that could be a threat or anything that's, you know, you saw a wire from the side of the road or from a distance heading to the side of the road where you're at. Like, it would look like something like this. Like, here's your road. You're traveling down it. There could be stuff everywhere. I mean, you know, the sides of the road are all covered in stuff. And then you would see like a wire going off, you know, and you're like, okay, there might be, you know, that was it. Like, that was just all you could do. So it's just interesting where it's like, okay, our technology is more advanced than the enemy's, but the enemy is beating our technology by reducing their technology and going backwards. And that's what I think they mean in this paper when they're talking about asymmetric warfare. Oh shit. Yeah, asymmetric warfare paradox. So pretty much what we're going to do is just pretty much read some of these papers. Little known about how among weaker states some to change the status quo are related to the expected response of the systems. Hegemon, just get a good definition. Fuck out of here. I need to stop swearing. I need to work on that. It's pure leader. In contrast to conventional wisdom that suggests militarized punishment to deter potential this feels a little bit more political. What is this? Deterrence. Publish your information. La 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 la. Abstract. The rapid advancement of military technologies, while promising greater efficiency and security, has a paradoxically deepened global inequalities and made warfare more asymmetric and impersonal. The transition from traditional combat to remote controlled warfare, drone strikes, cyber operations, and algorithmic-driven targeting has granted unprecedented power to technologically advanced nations that private entities while stripping war of its uh, visceral human consequences. This article critically examines how these developments have reshaped military strategies in reducing personal accountability. This feels a little bit more psychological. I don't care about ethics. So, like, here's the question I have regarding. So, regarding asymmetrical warfare paradox, how can one tell when the shift to lower levels of technology is advantageous? It is one, and it's one that real militaries, insurance groups, and analysts constantly wrestle with. The shift towards simpler, cheaper, or older technologies become advantageous only under specific battlefield conditions. It's not random. It's not low tech is always better, obviously. High-tech systems fail when the environment makes them fragile, hard to maintain, or impossible to support. Harsh terrain, extreme weather. No reliable logistics chain, limited access to fuel batteries. Blah, 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 blah. Honestly, this seems very much what's the word I'm looking for? Like this describes, I feel like, the Russian-Ukraine war a lot in the sense of like you have harsh winters. Russia has horrific logistics. The limited access to this might change. There is high jamming, no reliable extreme weather, harsh terrain. A little bit less than this. So, like, of the indicators, I guess, and again, this is AI, so I need to substantiate all this with like real journals eventually, but this is just a good starting point. Why, if a system requires long, blah, 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 Taliban fires using 40-year-old PKM RPGs because they work in dust, blah, 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 where Western optics and electronics often fail. When the cost exchange ratio becomes unsustainable. This is most modern visible indicator. Cheap weapons can reliably destroy expensive ones. The defender must spend more per shot than the attacker. The attacker can replace losses faster than the defender. This is why drones. This was like a big. That's why I feel like drones were such a big game changer. Like, a drone really is doing the same thing as a javelin. Like what the javelin does is allows a is there a javelin missile cutaway? Let's see here. Not great. I mean, it looks complex, but like the javelin really is. La 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 la. Did I not say large? I did say large. So what the? Okay. No. Like, it's the same concept as the RPG tandem warhead. Cut away. We're looking for 5 Soviet RPG 7-R. RPG 7R. Like, again, it's the same concept, just you have 2 of them. So, like, you have a small shape charge and a larger one. The small one's in the front, the larger one's in the back. This first one sets off things like reactive armor and other defenses, and then the second one is your like main charge that does the penetration. I mean, that's what this is. It's the same thing. You have your smaller precursor charge, sets off reactive armor and things like that, and then you have the main charge. But what makes the javelin so effective is that top-down attack. Like, tanks are just naturally weaker. Up top. So, like, you see how this slanted armor, the reason they slant armor, forget what the exact terms are, but like that slanted armor increases like how thick the armor is without having to like actually make the armor that thick. So like if you hit here, the angle of that armor is like, how would we describe this? La, 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 la. Okay, this is a pretty good picture, I think. So like if you hit this at a 9-degree, like if we copy image, if you come in at a 9-degree angle to this armor, it's a 100mm stick. But if you come in at this angle, this is way thicker. So that is longer. This is much longer than this. Like these two distances are different. Like if I take this and I move it, and I take this, we move it. I wish I could rotate this 90 degrees. Close enough. I mean, you can just see there's just so much more thickness to sloped armor. And that's why when you look at a T-72, this sloped section here is adding an increase to your armor thickness, just making it more survivable. This is like 90 degrees here. It's harder to get slopes in different angles, but you can kind of see this is also sloped up here, where this, like, you know, you expect your RPGs to, for the most part, come in here. And so the sloped armor helps. If an RPG comes into here, like this sloped armor helps. But when things start coming in like this is not any longer, that sloped armor is actually hurting you in the sense of like, it's not sloped in the right direction. So with your RPG or with your javelin, it's coming in at that high angle, pretty much taking away the effectiveness of your sloped armor and, you know, pretty much destroying your tank. But this is a very sophisticated way of getting that job done, in the sense of like, you're going to have, you know, this has a seeker, advanced fusing, you have to have rocket motors, this has to be steerable. So like, you know, articulating wings and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's like, you know, like what is the cost of a javelin? I mean, 240,000, 200,000, right? And then like your RPG 7. Warhead. Like if we find our average cost for RPG. Let's see here. We'll do the VL, like the standard. Based on available market information for similar RPG sims and training items, specific up to date, blah blah. It's not publicly listed. Inert replica costs 250 per unit. A live fire 40 millimeter RPG heat run can cost. Inert, no. Average cost of for RV. So $700 per unit. I mean, dude, like, I mean, it might be a little bit more expensive for the VR. Let's just see here. Okay, so again, like we're not even up to $1,000, and this is pretty much, I would say, maybe not 100% as effective, but it's pretty close in comparison to the javelin. The only difference is when you shoot this RPG, it's going pretty much in a straight line. There might be some lofting, but for the most part, it's going from point A to point B is in a straight line as possible, pretty much. So it's like, okay, well, how can you get this to do a top-down attack cheaply? And it's like, well, what if we just attached a drone to it? You know, like if you just took this and then you like took a DJI or like Ukraine war drone. Yeah, and you take something like this. Do. Whatever. Come over here. Oh, actually, where was that wiki? And it's like you just attach this. I mean, you're probably looking at like, let's say on the high end, $3,000 for this. It's like $3,000 is way cheaper. I mean, 200,000. Right, 3. I mean, you can get 66 of those drones. You can get like 66 homemade javelins for the cost of like one real javelin. Like, it's insane. So like that regression in technology is beating out, like, instead of paying $200,000 to defeat a tank, you could pay $3,000 to defeat the same tank and get pretty much the same and maybe even better control, right? Like this javelin, you have to like lock on, it's heavy, yada yada yada. Whereas like with a drone, not as heavy. Uh, one individual could potentially carry all the components to make a tandem warhead drone and things of that nature. So with that, that's where like we get into the turtle tank. And the whole idea behind the turtle tank is again to make that separation, so that way the heat jets are too far away from the armor when it starts to form for the heat jet to do its job functionally. So it's like, okay, like what can we do now to the turtle tank? Like if a heat jet isn't going to do it, what can we do? It's like, oh, we could, my theory is you go again, you aggress backwards a little bit and go, okay, instead of using a heat jet, why don't we use explosively formed projectiles? And that's where my thought process is. I just am interested. I need to read more so I can come up with a script pretty much. Like, okay, how do we talk about this in the most layman way possible? Because I'm a layman. I'm not going to sit here and be like, I'm an expert. But I mean, like, I have experience and some knowledge that, like, I guess the general population doesn't know, but I'm not, a PhD or an engineer or anything like that. So it's like, I feel like, let's see if standoff is mentioned in this stand. So yeah, here's your standoff. So remapping jet and EFP obtained from were allowed to impact a steel target at the desired standoff distance, whereas the total penetration of the schedule either that is totally consumed on the crater wall. When it falls below the certain value, as the penetration craters for EFP are shown in figure at different standoff distances. D1. So I believe this is your EFP and this is your jet. Like your jet at the appropriate standoff is almost always going to outperform your EFP at any standoff. So again, the jet is better if you have standoff. But now that with the turtle tank, we've pretty much destroyed standoff. It's like, well, now you're getting like this result at the end, whereas this result is better. I mean, like your penetration here is at 40. Penetration here is like nothing. So it's like, okay, like, yeah, I would say EFP is a regression of technology as opposed to the heat jet. But as war is progressing right now, at least in Russia-Ukraine war, it seems like regressing back to an EFP would be more lethal than trying to stay with heat jets. The problem is, I don't know if there's any true EFP ordnance that are like, well, like renowned. Like there's heats are everywhere. They're in javelins, they're in your RPGs. I'm guessing the NLAW, is there like a missile NLAW? Missile cut away. Like your NLAW is also using for your top-down attack. I want to say this is your charge right here. Like this thing is flying, and when it senses that it's over the top of the tank, it shoots. Now, it would be interesting if NLAWs are already using EFPs or heat. EFP. What about explosive? Okay, what about heat? So I mean, they're saying the warhead is heat. So I'm wondering if something like the NLAW, but modified for EFP, would be more destructive against a turtle tank than an NLAW with heat. So that's kind of like why I'm doing this research and for this video I did, in the sense of like, okay, like it's just very interesting to me that like regressing in technology beats out technology sometimes. Like if someone could figure out that for like an F-22 or F-35, like you pretty much just blew billions of dollars on research and development and acquisition and everything else of the F-35 and F-22. It's like you know, like what if someone just threw, like, you know, it wouldn't, like if there was like a high flying bird, like what is the highest flying? I mean, 37,000 feet. Yeah, like I don't think a bird could stop an F-22 or F-35 because they fly so much higher. F-22 flight ceiling limit. 65,000 feet. So like, but if you could get something up there 65,000 feet above the earth, and then like, I bet my mic's all messed up right now because I haven't opened this program and loaded the profile. Like if you could get something up there that could, you know, get sucked into an engine or disrupt, you know, maybe the stealth coating or something, like you could potentially defeat an F-22 or F-35 with something very simple. You just have to get something up there. I mean, you know, if you suspect F-22s and F-35s are in your flying over your area, if you could fill the sky with, you know, something that could kind of linger up there, like, and then get sucked into the engines or disrupt the stealth coating, making them more susceptible to like already produced anti-air missiles, like that would be a cheap, effective way of getting rid of or making something super expensive, super technologically advanced, pretty much obsolete. So yeah, it's just an interesting paradox in the military where it's like, okay, like how do we, I guess like another question I have is like, how do you know when this paradox is about to hit? So we're gonna read. First, a copy of Treasury Warrant to sanitize statistical process where life and death decisions are made at a distance, exposed to ethical dilemmas associated with the shift, seeing the psychological martyr. So, when the enemy strengths rely on high-tech systems, if the opponent's advantage is built on satellites, precision weapon, advanced sensors, air superiority, then the best counter is often to operate below the threshold where these systems work well. When decentralization beats centralization, high-tech militaries rely on long planning cycles, centralized command, synchronized logistics. Low-tech forces exploit this by being faster, more flexible, less dependent on infrastructure indicators. The flight is fragmented. Units operating when the mission is attrition, not decisive battles. I feel like a lot of these fall under the Russian-Ukraine war, but like, okay, like I feel like what Russia's doing to counter all this is to also regress their own. Like they're using drones, they're using horses, motorbikes, ATVs. They're no longer sending in a $5-10 million tank or BMPs or infantry fighting vehicles or anything like that. They're just regressing um, as well. So it's like, okay, how do you beat? How do you beat regression? I guess would be my. Do you just keep regressing below the current standard, um, or do you go higher in technology? Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. It's a question. It seems regression in the Ukraine Russia was working for both sides. Are you started with advanced, but were easily defeated by cheap drones. Then are you switch to cheap drones for themselves to use, and things like horses, ATVs, dirt bikes for logistics. How would one guess what to do next? Example, is there is a continuous adaptation if where both sides keep sliding up and down the tech ladder in different areas. The key is it's not who is more primitive wins, it's who chooses the right mix of tech and simplicity for the current enemy behavior. The structure around it is here is what Russian did in game terms. Russian shifted from heavily high value, high signature systems, tanks to cheap, low signature, high dispersed systems. FPV drones, quadcopters, small UGVs, horses, ATV. Okay, so what is the optimization for now? Low signatures, hard to see. Target dispersion. Angle strike gives big payoff. Cost resilience. Terrain exploitation that tells you where the attack anymore, but mobility routes isn't regress more, but regress in what dimension? Interesting. Oh, dude, I wonder if we could plot this. Like if you, okay. Like what if you did, hmm, hmm. Ambush doctrines, night. I'm wondering, like, think about it. Okay, if logistics are going to be more spread out, like, okay, first let's start with this. Okay, so let's do technology on this one. Tech, high, low tech. I wonder if you do dispersion, low. Disperse high. Like, what if you could plot this in the sense of like, so we have like T80s slash T72s get destroyed by like drones. You had low dispersion, so like lots of T72/80s, which the drones countered this with drone swarms. And then now we're at high dispersion with low technology. So that would be over here, would be like horses, which are being used now. Horses, ATVs, dirt bikes. We'll just say DB for dirt bikes. So, like, okay, you have this plot here. I wonder. Like if you low tech, low dispersion, this would be like a drone swarm. Drone swarm. Okay, so like you have that plotted there. Drone swarms beat lots of T72s. We'll say T72 sit here because this is just like a single object. Single object down here would be drone. This beats out this. But this is beating out this. Then what if you did, I wonder if low dispersion, like if you did like mass attacks kind of in the sense of like conventional high technology would be like, and low dispersion. So like mass attack, good armor. Could this be out the horses? Because now like with the horses you have more dispersion like on your front lines, like if your front line, you have team A, team B. With high dispersion, you have stuff everywhere. So that way, one strike. This is high dispersion, whereas like low dispersion would be things closely clumped together. I feel like this used to like be like you would get like overlapping sectors of fire, but very powerful overlapping sectors of fire. So if anything came in, no matter where you are, you're gonna get pretty pretty hurt here. You know, like if you try to come in, you're getting screwed. You're just getting screwed in every. So then I'm wondering, with this, you have a lot of smaller, not as powerful sectors of fire. If you could exploit this by taking, like, reverting back into very, like, if you got a big clump of stuff and you just smashed one sector, these guys are pretty much out of the fight, and then you only have this, which this would be like more of a conventional tactic. It's almost like fighting with your hands, like the Europa dope, where it's like you get the enemy to go into a certain position or posture, you know, in preparedness for like your attack, where they suspect your attack is going to be, and then you do the opposite of what they suspected your attack to be. That would be interesting. Could this be made into a visual matrix with different axes? Example, one axis would be technology, low to high, left to right, and then dispersion, low to high, bottom to top. Then plot different tactics and equipment on this matrix, and somehow show which thing on which piece of equipment or tactic on this matrix beats other equipment. That can be turned into a visual image, and the idea is strong enough to real. Sometimes use similar multi-axis models to understand it. Has this ever been done in the past to visualize things like this and more? Interesting. Our mathematical forces calculate the relative strength of military forces. Lancaster equations are different equations. Different equations describing the time dependent on two other strength. Army 1 Army force damage ratio. Interesting. I did not know any of this. Influencing from outside information, influencing interaction with environment. Hmm. We have X, Y, Z axis. That's three-dimensional. I wonder. Here's a clean structure. Load a high, plot. I'm so interested to see what this turns into. This would be so interesting. I'm gonna have to work on this one. This is gonna be rough. Like how? How are we gonna? Um, I wonder how. All right, let's start working on a little bit of script. Or paradox. Let's do this one first. Hmm. Yeah, I feel like this is a math problem, like a algebraic math problem, where it's like if A plus B equals C, and then you start filling things in. Hmm. How would this go? Fuck you. Dude, you gotta be kidding me right now. Turtle Tank beats Heat, but not possibly not EFP. Hello Tech. Trophy system and others like it. Beating everything? I don't even know if this would be. Disadvantages. Causing cost to deliver to be higher. Hmm. Oh, you know what? I want to know. Mm, mm, mm. Hmm. Aerogels have been tested for ballistic and shock absorption, but only in small scale, low energy, or body armor contexts, not tank armor. Silica aerogel ballistic test. Stay examined. Uh, heat jets. So I know no one's watching, but I'm just saving this for future use. So like aerogel. Uh, so this is aerogel, and it particles are shot into aerogel at high velocities. Close up of particles that have been captured in aerogel are shown here. So like aerogel is like this. I don't know how to. I mean, I can explain it. So it's like, what if you took all the liquid out of Jello? Like, what would be left? And what they found is like just a skeleton of like the physical structure. So like you have a liquid and you have solids. Like, so what is gelatin? Well, it's a little bit of both. Gelatin is a solid filled with liquid. Um, when you take away all the liquid, you're just left with a solid, and that's what aerogel is. Um, so I'm wondering if it can capture things moving at extremely high speeds. Hmm. Shaped charged jet is not a bullet. It's a super plastic metal jet with velocities, density, pressure, hundreds of pascals. Temperature hot enough to melt steel. Penetration mechanism, hydrodynamic penetration, not impact. These pressures, metals behave like liquids, and armor behaves like fluid too. That's why heat jets penetrate steel, ceramics, composite, concrete, rock. They don't push through, they flow through. Aerogel is empty space. If heat jet can penetrate solid steel, it will not even notice something. It's mostly air. What about the thermal resistant? Hmm. Where's my Google Drive doc? Forms a solid metal slug or rod, travels to 1.5 to 2.5 kilometers a second, stays coherent over long distances, penetrates by momentum and shear, not hydrodynamic flow. This is really different from heat jets. EFP penetration depends on mass, velocity, shape, stability, density of target strength. So the question becomes, can aerogel disrupt the slugs, slow it, or deform it? Extremely low density. The third, does aerogel thermite resist help? No, EFP. What you've actually built is spaced armor, steel box filled with aerogel. For a steel plate, gap filled with aerogel. What if front plate may start to erode or disrupt the jet? Gap gives the jet some distance to stretch and break up. Back plate catches. The standoff distance, gap thickness matters. The steel thickness matters. And the gap does not meaningfully stretch the jet. Just against EFPs, EFP slugs are about plate thickness, plate angles, plate spacing, plate material strength, density. If you're steel box, the front steel may deform or yaw the slug. The gap gives it space to yaw or fragment. The back steel may then suffer. But again, the steel does not. Interesting. Interesting indeed. Bro, I will say, dude, Bing's AI is pretty good. Hmm. Heat jets penetrate via hydrodynamic penetration. They in the target behave like fluids under extreme pressure. In that regime, a fluid layer between others is like another fluid, and the jet will plow through the fluid and then hit the back plate. It says heavy as hell. I like, dude, this AI is it is good. Hmm. Or low tech in construction, yes. Made more simple copper disc using charges. Simple electronic triggers. They are not, but that's only half. They were not low tech and forget that were also used in fixed controlled ideal conditions. Boxes welded to solid bases aimed at known kill zone. I still think an EFP born drone is possible. I don't know. Feel like I'm gonna fight AI a little bit on this one. All right, I'm gonna grab some food. I'm gonna stop the old stream, but I'll be back. There's more research to be done on different videos too. This will probably take just a lot of time, but we're gonna figure it out. Nice little 2-hour research stream. We'll come back. It's all good. All right. One love. Shout over, shout out.